Welcome back to another Barjacks video. My name is Dylan, and today we are going to be dropping a underwater camera 10 feet under a giant fishing pier, then 500 feet deep over a massive shipwreck, and finally 1,000 feet deep where we continue our hunt for a sea monster. So without further ado, let's get right into this video. We started off our morning with a 2-mile run north toward this fishing pier. Once we reached a spot, we began rigging up the underwater camera, and on this first drop, the underwater camera was actually going to be a submarine. So once we connected this sub to our phone, we sealed the cable tightly to the back of this submarine. After that, we positioned the boat right next to the pier and dropped the camera into the water. Now this fishing challenge has officially began. We now switch over to the underwater point of view and slowly make our way toward the pier. Right away, the structure in this area looks extremely promising, which usually means there should be plenty of fish around. As we get closer, we can already see a few fish moving through the structure and working in the area. And coming up right after this, we're dropping this underwater camera 500 feet deep over a massive shipwreck, so stay tuned. So now we can clearly see spadefish and pufferfish working the pier. And then out of nowhere, this parrotfish showed up. And those are honestly some of the coolest fish to see with the submarine. We also spotted a few yellowtail snapper and even one yellowfish I couldn't quite identify. As we continued moving underneath the pier, there honestly wasn't as much life down there as I expected, but it was still really cool to see everything from the submarine's point of view. So we tried following this parrotfish, and it looked like it was just cruising along the pilings, eating barnacles right off the poles. After watching that for a bit, we decided to keep moving, and let me know in the comments below where you guys would want to see us drop this underwater camera or the submarine next. So I decided to start making my way back toward the boat, and that's when things got interesting. As we moved into deeper water, we spotted 3 giant fish in the distance. We turned the camera toward them and ended up capturing 3 massive jacks swimming right past the camera lens. This was by far the highlight of this entire 10-foot drop. After capturing those 3 jacks swimming right past the camera, we knew it was time for the 500-foot drop. So we pulled the submarine back towards the boat, and it was finally time to safely retrieve it. So I put my hand on the sub and we gently retrieved this submarine. But now it's time to make the run offshore and head towards our spot sitting 500 feet deep. Once we got to the spot sitting in 500 feet of water, it was time to start rigging up our deep drop setup. The most important part of this drop is the underwater camera. Right below the camera, we usually add 2 deep drop lights, and those are crucial when you're fishing deep in the ocean. After that, we clipped on our 5-hook deep drop rig, and now it was time to start setting up our baits. Today we were fishing with squid, and this is by far one of the best baits for deep dropping. The main reason is because it stays on the hooks so well. All we're going to do is cut this squid into 3 pieces. Depending on the spot and how deep we are fishing, sometimes we'll even use the full squid. So now that we're all set, all we do is drop the rig in the water, and then we make our way down 500 feet deep. So we now switch over to the underwater camera point of view, and coming up next is the 1,000-foot underwater camera drop, so stay tuned. But right now we're already a few hundred feet deep, and you'll notice just how dark it gets down here. So we have officially just hit bottom, and there was a fish on the bottom instantly. This spot that we were fishing today is known for grouper, tilefish, and snapper. So let's see what we can find down here. So right off the start, a bunch of fish came out of the shadows, and these were all giants. This was by far one of the most packed drops we've ever had with the underwater camera. Fish were everywhere. Most of them were tilefish, but if you look closely, there is a grouper swimming around down there. So I decided to bring up the camera thinking I had one of these fish on my rig, but real quickly I noticed there was nothing on there. So I dropped the rig right back down to the bottom, and this is where things got really interesting. So the second we hit bottom, fish came out of every angle, and there were some giants in there. But we somehow ended up hooking that one grouper on the very bottom. So the second I felt this fish hit our bait, I slowly started bringing him up. This wasn't a giant fish by any means, but anytime you get to fish with a camera at this depth and actually catch something, it's always awesome. After a few minutes of bringing him in, we finally had him right up near the boat, and that's when we were able to see this beautiful snowy grouper. So I flipped this fish in the boat and we were able to land this beautiful snowy grouper. But now it's time for that 1,000-foot drop. So we picked up our lines and made our way offshore. Once we got to our spot 1,000 feet deep, we rigged up some full squids. And at this drop, you definitely want to use those bigger baits. So once we were all set again, we added on a 6-pound weight, and then we made our way down 1,000 feet deep. And on this drop, it took us forever to hit bottom. And when you're fishing this deep, that's why it's so important to use an electric reel. Because if you did this all manually, you would be here for hours just to do one drop. But after about 5 minutes of dropping, we have finally just hit bottom. And you guys can tell, it is pitch black down here. So we drifted for a few minutes, and when you're this deep, what you're really looking for are 2 green eyes. That usually signals there's a fish nearby. So if you look on the bottom right of your screen, you can see a fish just slammed our bait, and there are green eyes everywhere. So we must have just ran over a pod of fish, because if you look around the screen, you can see there are multiple fish everywhere. So right there, it looks like another fish hit our line. So at this point, we have 2 fish on our deep drop rig. So we're slowly gonna start bringing them up, and that's why it's so important to use multiple hooks when you're fishing this deep, because sometimes you get lucky and you're able to bring up multiple fish. But we now had these fish a couple 100 feet right under the boat, and these Blackbelly rosefish are actually really good eating fish. They are just extremely hard to fillet. So we flipped these Blackbelly rosefish in the boat, and just like that, we were able to end our 1,000-foot drop with 2 fish in the cooler. We hope you guys enjoyed this underwater fishing video, and we'll see you in the next Barjack's Family fishing video.